So our last reader is Nick Neely. He's a Hailey-based essayist and the author of Coast Range, a collection from the Pacific Edge, and the upcoming Alta, California, from San Diego to San Francisco, a journey on foot to rediscover the Golden State. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you all. I'm just going to pour some water here. Thanks for sticking around. I'm pleased to be closing out this evening here. It's a pleasure to read from Barry Lopez's collection about this life. Of course, Barry was here just a few weeks ago, and I was here for that conversation that he had with Jenny. And she mentioned then a particular essay in this volume called Apologia, which when I first read it, I thought it was called Apologia. But I'm a little older and wiser now. And Barry Lopez is an author that I latched onto when I was in high school. And he sort of steered me towards environmental writing. In my sophomore year, I read Crossing Open Ground. And along with Wallace Stegner's All the Little Live Things, something I think began to turn or click in me. And so I think his influence in my writing is somewhat profound, though I don't often think about him these days until recently. I just my new book, which is coming out in November, is called Alta, California, and I walked for 12 weeks from San Diego to San Francisco, retracing the first Spanish expedition overland into what's now California. And along the way, I saw a lot of roadkill, which this essay is about. I wish I had turned back to this essay to see just how he does it, how he really treats these forgotten subjects with incredible respect. Hopefully I did my justice to them in my own way, but in terms of roadkill writing, this is the tops. It's a short essay. Apologia. A few miles east of home in the Cascades, I slow down and pull over for 2 raccoons, sprawled still as stones in the road. I carry them to the side and lay them in sun-shot, wind-blown grass in the barrow pit. In eastern Oregon, along US 20, black-tailed jackrabbits lie like welts of sod, 3, 4, then a 5th. By the bridge over Jordan Creek, just shy of the Idaho border in the drainage of the Owyhee River, a crumpled adolescent porcupine leers up almost maniacally over its blood-flecked teeth. I carry each one away from the pavement into a cover of grass or brush out of decency, I think, and worry. Who are these animals? Their light's gone out. What journeys have fallen apart here? I do not stop to remove each dark blister from the road. I wince before the recently dead, feel my lips tighten, see something else, a fence post, in the spontaneous aversion of my eyes, and pull over. I imagine white silk threads of life still vibrating inside them, even if the body's husk is stretched out for yards, stuck like oiled muslin to the road. The energy that once held them erect leaves like a bullet, but the memory of that energy fades slowly from the wrinkled cornea, the bloodless fur. The raccoons and later a red fox carry like sacks of wet gravel and sand. Each animal is like a solitary child's shoe in the road. Once a man asked, "Why do you bother?" "You never know," I said. "The ones you give some semblance of burial, to whom you offer an apology, may have been like seers in a parallel culture. It is an act of respect, a technique of awareness." In Idaho, I hit a young sage sparrow, thwack against the right fender, in the very split second I see it. Its companion rises from the same spot, but a foot higher, slow as smoke, and sails off clean into the desert. I rest the wallop bird in my left hand, my right thumb pressed to its chest. I feel the wail of the heart. Its eyes glisten like rain on crystal, nothing but warmth. I shut the tiny eyelids and lay it beside a clump of bunch grass. Beyond a barbed wire fence, the overgrazed range is littered with cow flops. The road curves away to the south. I nod before I go, a ridiculous gesture out of simple grief. I pass 4 spotted skunks. The swirling air is acrid with the rupture of each life. Darkness rises in the valleys of Idaho. East of Grandview, south of the Snake River, nighthawks swoop the roads for gnats, silent on the wing as owls. On a descending curve, I see two of them lying soft as clouds in the road. I turn around and come back. The sudden slowing down and my K-turn at the bottom of the hill draw the attention of a man who steps away from a tractor, a dozen yards from where the birds lie. I can tell by his step, the suspicious tilt of his head, that he is wary, vaguely proprietary. Offended or irritated, he may throw the birds back into the road when I leave. So I wait, subdued like a penitent, a body in each hand. He speaks first, a low voice, a deep murmur weighted with awe. He has been watching these flocks feeding just above the road for several evenings. He calls them whippoorwills. He gestures for a carcass. How odd, yes, the way they concentrate their hunting right on the road, I say. He runs a finger down the smooth arc of the belly and remarks on the small whiskered bill. He pulls one long wing out straight, but not roughly. He marvels. He glances at my car, baffled by this out-of-state courtesy. 24 nighthawks careen past, back and forth at arm's length, feeding at our height and lower. He asks if I would mind, as though I owned it, if he took the bird up to the house to show his wife. She's never seen anything like this, he says. He's fascinated. Not close. I trust later he will put it in the fields, not throw the body in the trash. A whirligig. North of Pinedale in western Wyoming on US 189, below the Gros Ventre Range, I see a big doe from a great distance, the low rays of first light gleaming in her tawny reddish hair. She rests askew like a crushed tree. I drag her to the shoulder, then down a long slope by the petals of her ears. A gunny sack of plaster mud, ears cold as rain gutters. All of her doesn't come. I climb back up for the missing leg. The stain of her is darker than the black asphalt. The stains go north and off to the south as far as I can see. On an afternoon trafficless, quiet as a cloister, headed across South Pass in the Wind River Range, I swerve violently but hit a bird, and then try to wrestle the gravel-spewing skid in a straight line along the lip of an embankment. I know even as I struggle for control the irony of this. I could easily pitch off here to my own death. The bird is dead somewhere in the road behind me. Only a few seconds, and I'm safely back on the road, nauseated, lightheaded. It is hard to distinguish among younger gulls. I turn this one around slowly in my hands. It could be a western gull, a mule gull, a California gull. I do not remember well enough the bill markings, the color of the legs. I have no doubt about the vertebra shattered beneath the seamless white of its ropey neck. East of Lusk, Wyoming, and Nebraska, I stop for a badger. I squat on the macadam to admire the long claws, the perfect set of its teeth in the broken jaw, the ramulose shading of its fur, how it differs slightly, as does every badger's, from the drawings and pictures in the field guides. A car drifts towards us over the prairie, coming on in the other lane, a white 1962 Chevrolet station wagon. The driver slows to pass. In the bright sunlight, I can't see his face, only an arm and the gesture of his thick left hand. It opens in a kind of shrug, hangs briefly in limp sadness, then extends itself in supplication. Gone past, it curls into itself against the car door and is still. Farther on in western Nebraska, I pick up the small bodies of mice and birds. While I wait to retrieve these creatures, I do not meet the eyes of passing drivers. Whoever they are, I feel anger toward them, in spite of the sparrow and the gull I myself have killed. We treat the attrition of lives on the road like the attrition of lives in war. Horrifying, unavoidable, justified. Accepting the slaughter leaves people momentarily fractious, embarrassed. South of Broken Bow, at dawn, I cannot avoid an immature barn swallow. It hangs by its head, motionless in the slats of the grill. I stop for a rabbit on Nebraska 806 and find only a few feet away a garter snake. What else have I missed? Too small, too narrow. What has gone under or past me while I stared at mountains, hay meadows, fence rows, the bare old surface of rivers? In Wyoming, I could not help but see pronghorn antelope swollen big as barrels by the side of the road, their legs splayed rigidly aloft. For animals so large, people will stop. But how many have this habit of clearing the road of smaller creatures, people who would remove the ones I miss? I do not imagine I am alone. As much sorrow as the man's hand conveyed in Nebraska, it meant gratitude, too, for burying the dead. Still, I do not wish to meet anyone's eyes. In southwestern Iowa, outside Clarinda, I haul a deer into the high grass out of sight of the road and begin to examine it. It is still whole, but the destruction is breathtaking. The skull, I soon discover, is fractured in 4 places. The jaw, hanging by shreds of mandibular muscle, is broken at the symphysis beneath the incisors. The pelvis is crushed, the left hind leg unsocketed. All but 2 ribs are dislocated along the vertebral column, which is complexly fractured. The intestines have been driven forward into the chest. The heart and lungs have ruptured the chest wall at the base of the neck. The signature of a tractor truck, 80,000 pounds at 65 miles per hour. In front of a motel room in Ottumwa, I finger scrape the dry, stiff carcasses of bumblebees, wasps, and butterflies from the grill and headlight mountings. And I scrub with a wet cloth to soften and wipe away the nap of crumbles, the insects, the aerial plankton of spiders and mites. I am uneasy carrying so many of the dead. The carnage is so obvious. In Illinois, west of Kankakee, 2 raccoons as young as the ones in Oregon. In Indiana, another raccoon, a gray squirrel. When I make the left turn into the driveway at the house of a friend outside South Bend, it is evening, hot and muggy. I can hear cicadas in a lone elm. I'm glad to be here. From the driveway entrance, I look back down Indiana 23 toward Indiana 8, remembering the farm roads of Illinois and Iowa. I remember how beautiful it was in the limpid air to drive Nebraska 2 through the sandhills, to see how far at dusk the land was etched east and west of Wyoming 28. I remember the imposition of the Wind River Range in a hard blue sky beneath white ranks of buttonhook clouds, windy hayfields on the Snake River Plain, the welcome of Russian olive trees and willows in western creek bottoms. The transformation of the heart of such beauty, such beauty engenders, is not enough tonight to let me shed the heavier memory, a catalog too morbid to write out, too vivid to ignore. I stand in the driveway now, listening to the cicadas whirring in the dark tree. My hands grip the sill of the open window at the driver's side, and I lean down as if to speak to someone still sitting there. The weight I wish to fall, I cannot fathom, a sorrow over the world's dark hunger. A light comes on over the porch. I hear a deadbolt thrown, the shiver of a door pulled free. The words of atonement I pronounce are too inept to offer me release or forgiveness. My friend is floating across the tree-shadowed lawn. What is to be done with a desire for exculpation? Later than we thought you'd be, he says. I do not want the lavabo. I wish to make amends. I made more stops than I thought I would, I answer. Well, bring in your things and whatever I can take, he offers. I anticipate in the powerful antidote of our conversation, the reassurance of a human enterprise, the forgiving embrace of the rational. It waits within, beyond the slow tail wagging of 2 dogs standing at the screen door. Thank you. And thank you, Barry. Sorry, that's a little bit of a dark note to end a very celebratory evening on, but an important essay.